And I'll be moderating the second sessions as well with Michel Hamilton. He's the Chief Strategy Transformation and Digital Officer at Maybank Indonesia. Wow, that's a lot of responsibility. Strategy, transformation, and digital. And we'll be hearing from Pak Michel how banking should embrace innovation and acceleration to continue staying relevant and creating new ways in serving customers. Rian has mentioned the title of this session, and it's Seizing Business Opportunities in Uncertainty Period Through Innovation and Acceleration. So let's get to it. Please give a big round of applause for Pak Michel Hamilton. Selamat siang, Pak. Good afternoon, Pak Michel.
Hey, selamat siang, afternoon, Indra.
Thank you. I'm really happy to have you here, Pak Michel, and
Likewise.
looking forward to learning from you. Okay, you have 35 minutes for presentations, and then we will continue with Q&A for 15 minutes. And Pak Michel, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Pak Indra, and morning, everyone. Let me try to share my screen now. I hope everyone can see my screen. So in today's opportunity, allow me to share a bit more on how we can seize business opportunity in this uncertain period, and how we can actually use innovation and acceleration as a key catalyst for us to do creations during this uncertainty period. I'm just giving you context of today's presentation. So we are moving through an era where everything rapidly change and evolve. This is something that we probably haven't seen it before. Probably in the past, changes happens every 5 or 3 years, but now is in the months or even in seconds, everything happens. And with these changes and rapid evolutions, we are getting into an era where everything becomes more uncertain. And this uncertainty happens in the blink of our eyes. It depends on us now, whether we want to see this as a challenging and difficult situations to adopt, or we want to see this as an era where everything is possible. We believe that if everything can be seen and everything can be analyzed, we can actually move and adopt faster as we can continue to be ahead of the curve. Innovation and acceleration is a way for us to seize the opportunity in these uncertainty periods. And some of the key enablers such as digital ecosystem development and big data will be playing a fundamental enablers in these situations. What I'm going to share today is how banking should embrace innovation and accelerations in order for us to continue staying relevant and creating a new way in serving our customers. But before that, let's just have a look at a snapshot of today's situation. We are in a situation where pandemic has been happening so many times. In over a decades, we have swine flu, Ebola, Zika, and recently COVID-19. And I think accepting the fact that pandemic will continue to happen, and we just need to make sure that every time there's a pandemic happen, we are ready to face the situation and we're ready to change and adopt. And the era today is the era where everything is uncertain. Will the trade war happen, the European Act, ASEAN Act, and anything else? It changed the way we trade, it changed the way we do our business, it changed the way the customer behaving, it changed the way the regulation is actually creating their policies. And that's where we need to adapt. And technology has infused in our primary needs. Social media, cashless transactions, mobile device, and internet connectivity is something that has become our core needs, our customer core needs. And it's not something that we can actually shift away from. And data has been fundamental weapon. Actionable insight has become a big demand over the past few years, and it will continue to grow. Nowadays, when people say data is the new oil or data is where the war will happen, is for us to really understand the information and for us to really understand and formulate what action that we can do. We see this is an era where everything is possible. Impossible is no more. Anything that we think is not something we can do in a very short time period, yet things can happen in a very short time period. So we should have a look on this. This is the era that we are actually going through, and this is the era where we think innovation will continue to happen and evolution will never change. And we are in the era where long-term vision is no more a long-term vision. It's become a short-term plan. We are no more able to create a roadmap of a 5 years plan or so on. We are having a plan for a short term. We're having a plan that is a medium term as much as we can. So this is where the today's situations and this is the rapid evolution that continue to happen. But what can we do to actually adopt and adapt in these situations? I'm going to give you two things, right? If we can really solve the real problems and we can really understand the customer needs, and this is the only two ingredients or the two formula that I can share with you guys. If you are able to do so, you'll be able continuously to adapt and adopt in this uncertainty period. When we talk about solving problems, what are we trying to solve problems? I'm just giving you one of the examples, several examples of today's situation. When people mobilization has been restricted, this is a problem for a lot of people, and how we can actually adapt and how we can actually change our business models in order to solve and resolve this problem. Tracing people movement, fulfilling the basic needs through the internet, cyber crime that is continuing to happen, data protection. Those are the problems, real problems in the current situation, in the current era that we need to take a look on and we need to have a solution on it. And through this situation, we need to be able to understand the needs, analyzing the ongoing concerns, identifying the behavioral changes, classify the people concerns and need, and prioritize your actions because you cannot solve everything together at the same time. We need to be able to prioritize which one that we want to resolve. And we need to rapidly adapt and adopt with the changes. And if you're able to change the way you think, the change your organization behavior and the change your organization visions to focus on solving problems and understand the needs, and that's where you can actually seize the opportunities in this uncertainty period. Who can actually seize the opportunity? I want to give you two, which I think that's very fundamental organization in the world, able to continuously adapt and adopt in a lot of changes happen in the world. The number one is definitely Amazon. If I want to have a review on them, their business plan has changed multiple times. They're able to seize the opportunities, they're able to pivot, and they are able to do variation in the way they do their business. And you can see the result of today. Whatever the situation, whatever the pandemic happens, whatever the crisis happens, they continuously to grow because they are able to adapt and adopt into the situations. And who else that can actually do the same is Alibaba. Alibaba has started from online commerce and then become a full one-stop shopping solutions that everyone can actually do in their platform, in their solutions. And this is the example of who can actually seize the opportunities in this uncertainty period. But how can we do that? What can we do? Well, I guess for me, if I want to share, number one, if you want to seize the business opportunities in this uncertainty period, you need to be a customer-centric organization. Well, what does it take to be a customer-centric organization? You need to put the customer centricity at the core of your business strategy. We are no longer put revenue growth, profitability increase, market share at the core of our business strategy. We need to change that mindset. We need to put the customer needs, the customer centricity at the core of our strategy. And when we already do so, we need to infuse a human-centered design in any kind of a product and services that we are about to develop, so that we know it's not from our angles, it's actually from our customer angles, what sort of solution that actually fit for their needs. And we need to be able to do experimental, continuously to adapt and define what is the customer needs based on the product and solution that we can actually offer to them. And that's probably the number one thing that we can do to seize a business opportunity. Be a customer-centric organization. And if you are a customer-centric organization, you need to stay close with your customers. You need to understand who is your segments, who are you going to serve, and stay focused and stay true to the segments that you already selected. If you pick a young professional or a young family, a mid-level, a silver gauge, golden age as your core segments, and stay close to your segments. Understand their needs, understand their problems, understand how they can actually interact with you. And also, you need to stay close with your community. And who are the community that you're trying to serve? And who are the community that you want to continually engage? And start with that. If you start small and niche and ensure that you stay focused on that, and you'll be able to excel serving this customer segment's need, you'll be able to expand beyond than that. And you'll be able to sustain the growth of your business. And to seize the opportunity, definitely, as we probably have heard this so many times, we need to be a data-driven organization. We need to be data-driven in anything that we do. And to enable a data-driven organization, what do we need? Number one, enrich your data sources. Nothing else that you need to do unless to keep acquiring data. You need to be able to acquire data, not solely dependent on your internal data, but also external data, be it structured data or unstructured data. And when you have all the data sources that you can, you need to make sure you have enough infrastructures, solutions to hold, maintain, and contain that data with you. And you need to ensure you centralize data management. It's not something that you can actually distribute it, because data is the core of your insight generations. When you already acquire the data from multiple sources, make sure that data is actually protected well in your organization and shared and distributed properly across the organization. And you make sure that the business put a data-driven in each of their activities. Whenever they're creating a products, they're creating a solutions, or they're defining a policy, make sure they can have a self-service intelligence. And last but not least, that is more important, is ensuring you have the data governance in place. The least that you can do is actually, you don't want to have data that is actually unable to be managed properly, and you'll be swamped with data instead of be able to use and provide an insight from the data that you have. So the data governance, data dictionary, data policy, and data role and responsibilities is a fundamental aspects for you to be a data-driven organization. And if you already a data-driven organization, what else? You can actually start to create a special units. In banking, probably these units something that is not common to have, but nowadays a lot of banking has already started thinking in the way of a technology company do. We have our segments focus team, we have a partnership and ecosystem development team, we have a digital team, and we have a data analytics teams. These special units probably is not common in the typical structure of a traditional organization, but we need to have a people that is dedicated and very focused on things that probably previously is not being taken care. And these are the units that will help to drive the business, identify the opportunities, identify a new business model, identify the new segments that we want to serve. So that's another thing that we can do. And we need to embrace agile and experimental culture. So this is one of the things probably is difficult to adapt and adopt, but these are the things that is important for us to continue to seize opportunities moving forward. We need to be able to provide a safe environment for people to generate idea as a foundation, and we need to set a budget for experimenting. When we say experimenting, we need to have like a real solid use cases as well. When we say experimenting, it doesn't mean that you haven't done any analysis or you don't have any hypothesis to create that budget that you'll spend is actually worth to spend. But when we talk about experimenting, is actually a hypothesis that you already built based on a certain use cases, and you want to test it out whether it's going to be successful or not. And you need to be able to embrace a culture of fail fast and pivot the solutions. You don't need to be so loyal with your ideas. You need to be able to let go the idea and change the idea if the idea it doesn't work. So that's how we can actually embrace agile and experimental culture. And how to change and challenge the status quo. First and foremost, change the mindset of the organization. It has to come from the top. Agility, it has to come from the executive level and continue to propagate to each of the working level and the managerial level. We need to focus on what problem to solve we need to do a pilot and prototyping, and we need to ready to change. Anything that we do, we need to ready to change. And we cannot actually say that this is the plan that we already planned and we want to continue to run the plan. If the plan it doesn't fit to the current circumstances, we need to be able to change it and pivot and do something else differently. We need to be ready to fail. We need to accept imperfection because there's no such thing as a perfect solution. There's no such thing as a perfect plan, and continues to learn and improvise. So there are the most important thing. We need to change the mindset, and we also need to change the culture. As I said before, environment needs to be made to be safe to speak up, to be safe to say that there's something wrong with the strategy, there's something wrong with our plan, there's something wrong with our organization. We need to make sure we are inspiring people to generate ideas and organize a process where ideas can be generated. This is where we can actually change the culture to be innovation culture and empower people to be creative and innovative. And lastly, we need to change the target and goals. So organization is no more about becoming the number one, becoming famous, generating more revenues, increase ROE, reduce cost, or increase margin. We need to see this as the implication of us doing a proper goals. Our goals is to solve customer problems and to provide the customer needs. When we actually solve customer problems and provide customer needs, the other things subsequently will follow. And that's the implication of executing the right target and executing the right goals. I guess that will be all that I can share for today, and happy to accept for any comments and questions.
So much, Pak Michel. Very inspiring presentations. It's very concise and yet lots of knowledge, informations, and insights that we can gather from your presentations. And ladies and gentlemen, my friends, corporate innovators, if you have any questions, please type on the chat box on the right side of your screen. And don't forget to put questions in bracket and then type your questions. Okay, so while we are waiting for our corporate innovators all over Asia to type in their questions, I have a questions first, Pak Michel.
Sure, Pak.
Yep. It's interesting that companies nowadays are forced to transform, and you have outlined the steps required to do that transformation well. Can you share with us some of the examples which Maybank has conducted in the past few months or even years, so that we can have a clear view on how big banks such as Maybank has conduct such transformations? Maybe you can share just one or two things from the slides and then give examples on how you in Maybank, how Maybank have done that.
Okay, I guess a couple of things that we have done it before is actually we have a lot of transformation steering committee we created. For instance, we want to change our retail go-to-market approach, and we want to put digital at the core of our strategy in retail market. And what we do actually, we started with creating what is our goal, right? What is our ambition? What is the customer problem that we want to solve? We start with that. Asking the right question is the first things that you need to do, right? When you actually asking the right questions, what are the goals that you want to achieve? And if you already agreed on the goals, and subsequently you need to understand what are the measurements, what are the key success indicators that we want to continue to say, these are the key success measurements. And when we already do so, we create an environment where people can generate ideas. In that ideation sessions, we talk about what are the innovation or creativity that people can provide it to achieve our goals, to achieve the customer problems that we want to solve. We use data analytics as a basic to complement on the business problems, on the idea, whether the idea is going to be working or not, and we put some pilot environment. As what we said before, as I said before, that we don't want to start too big and it's too hard to accept as a failure. We want to make it as a safe environment to do piloting, test the hypothesis. We have some hypotheses. These are the customers' problems. These are the solutions that align to the problems. And this is the way we actually communicate to our customers. Based on that hypothesis, we actually test it in a very short time. Maximum 3 months, we need to be able to test it, the solutions, the idea, and we see whether it's going to be working or not. When it's not working, we need to be able to fine tune it. But if it's really, really not working, if it's really not something that we can actually address the customer problems, we need to be able to kill it. This is the most important, this is the most hardest part, right? To kill the idea, right? Yeah. Sometimes people become too attached to the ideas. When people is too attached with the idea, you'll find a way to justify that initiatives to make sure that you continue to do the things that you think is not working anymore, right? So that's where we need to make sure people needs to be measured. That's why we need to have the measurement first. We need to agree on the measurement and stay true to that measurement so that anything that you do, if it's failed, we need to accept as a failure and we need to change. We are not trying to get who is at blame, right? We just need to understand if it's failed because of what? Because of the product, or because it's not the right customer problems, or because of the customer approach that we are trying to do. So that's where we continue infuse this to our DNA. It's not something that probably easy to be done in banking before, right? Sometimes we always start with a big bang, big numbers, long-term projects, right? A minimum 6 months or 12 months duration of projects or initiatives. For now, we cap it in 3 months. We need to be able to pilot maximum. And when we talk about pilot, then we assess, we do a post-mortem, whether this is successful or not. If it's successful, we need to plan to scale out. If it's not successful, we fine-tune it. If it's not working, we kill it. So that's how the kind of mindset, the kind of culture, the kind of framework, the kind of structure that we are doing today.
Great. There's a question that's sort of like similar, or I also have that same questions. We know that in banking industry is very highly regulated industry, right? And a lot of my friends, corporate innovators in banking, they are all sort of like asking questions. How do we actually do experimentations where everything is being regulated? We are being watched every single day. So there's a question by Ajeng Nurul. Would you share your experience in embedding experimental culture in your organizations, and what are the key challenges?
It's a very good question and very great questions. I guess this is from the industry itself, right? We continue to give feedback to the regulators. We continue to work closely with the regulators and hoping that this agile culture, this experimental culture also can be supported through the policies that they are creating. Good thing to know, currently they are working on it. They are looking for a way where we said this is still in pilot stage. Probably there's going to be a different approach in the approval process. But what we are trying today, sometimes we make it small. We make the pilot in a very small environment, probably to our staff first. So we are not announcing to the customers. So that's how we can actually do pilot and experimental in our organizations. We keep it small. We target it. We test it first, because if you talk about retails, our staff, our people is also the customers, right? We can test it with them. We are not showing to the world yet, but we test it with our people and see the feedback. And if they are saying good or bad, and that's become our input to fine tune, while we actually in parallel having a lot of conversation with the regulators to get approvals. But I guess today the banking products is very standard, right? There is no such thing as a very innovative banking products. What we are doing is actually we have a lot of these basic products. How we can mix it up, how we can actually combine them, how we can actually infuse them to become a new offering. I'm not saying it's a new product, it's a new offering. You package it in a way, it sounds like a new product, but it's not actually. But it's really focused on a certain customer segments. The the problem with us banking, I don't know in other industries, but us, we generalize, right? We said we have 1 to 1,000 products, give it to everyone, mass banking. Then that's become a lot of information for people to chew or to understand, right? But if we say that this product, we targeted the information only to the certain segments, and these solutions only to the certain segments, and we need to make sure we personalize the approach. We personalize up to the hyper personalizations. We talk about segments, we can continue go down to micro segments up to the individual levels. That is the ideal way, and provide only the product that they need. They don't need to know A to Z all products in the banking. But when you actually do so, you lose the focus of the people. So that's how we try to change it in a way that we are not trying to create a new products. We're creating a different packaging. We're creating a different solutions that is fit for purpose depending on the customer that we're serving. I think that's how I can actually respond.
So by not creating a new product, but instead sort of like just changing the offering, combining existing products, then you are not worried about whether the OJK or the regulations would sort of like, be mine to the products, right? And
Yep.
also, I think what I note from your answer about the question, how do you experiment in such a regulated industry, is that by doing it internally. So instead of you are experimenting with external customers, then you experiment with your own employees, which is they are also the customers. They are also using your products, right? So if you get the feedback from your internal customers, your own employees, and then you keep iterating the products until one day you believe that the real customers out there will also have the same response. They would also be happy to buy or use that innovations that you just created within the organization. Then maybe you will escalate that to the management, and perhaps that will become a new products or offering. Is that correct? Is that
correct? Right? You just summarize it correctly.
Okay, great. There's a second question. This is about mindset. A lot of the things that you mentioned during your presentations is about the strategy, right? This is what you have to do, and you have to do this. This is how you do it. But ultimately, it is the people who's actually doing it. And one of the challenges of us, employees, workers, is our own mindset. We're not prone to changes. We don't like changes. So when you mentioned earlier about shifting the goal, it's not about getting more revenue. It's not about reducing costs, but it is about solving customer problem. That's a huge shift of mindset, which is, we were told for years that, we work in order to, get revenue, reducing costs. Our KPIs depend on that, right? And then suddenly this guy say that, no, that's not our goal. Our goal is to solve customers' problem. And how do people respond to that? That's number one. And number two is how you change that mindset.
Yeah. So I guess the first mindset that needs to change is from the top, right? Our shareholders, our executive level also needs to believe that we need to change the goal. Of course, it doesn't mean the financial target will move away from our KPI. It won't. It will continue, will be in our KPI. But we need to use that as what we call it a lagging indicators. But the leading indicators needs to be addressing the customer problems. When you actually solve the leading indicators and you see the traction on that, you'll be for sure improving the lagging indicators, which is the financial target. And that's how from the top management, it has to believe on that, and we propagate. And this is not something, changing mindset, changing culture is not something that you can do in a year or 2 years. It's a multi-years program. And you need to continuously remind people, continuously try to brainwash people mindset that this is something that we need to do differently. And we need to believe if we do this, we will definitely get the financial impact. But if we only focus on the financial impact, we will never get the sustainable business. We will never get the sustainable revenues. We will never get the sustainable development and growth. And that's why we need to make sure we change the mindset. And changing the mindset, it is not easy. It is very difficult. But guess what? COVID-19 has give us a lot of lesson. Nothing is impossible anymore. When I think people sometimes at the beginning of this year or probably a few years ago, digital only for the young professional. Digital is only for millennials. Guess what? Digital is everywhere. Even a person with a 50 years old above, they can actually do Zoom call. Even people today, right? When we actually do these kind of events, we can do actually in a remote way. So that changed a lot of people mindset and belief that digital is not something we cannot adopt, and digital belongs to everyone. And changes can happen in an instance. Less than 8 months, we changed the way the traffic of transactions from a brick mortar flows into a digital flows in a less than 8 months. And this is where people starting to believe nothing is impossible. Findra, you're on mute.
So you were saying that nowadays people are forced to change their mindset. There are no other way. If you don't change your mindset, you'll be like, you don't belong in this century. You don't belong in this pandemic. So it is much easier for us leaders that wants to create new cultures, shifting mindsets toward more digitally savvy. It's much easier for us now because the situation forced employees, forced everyone to adopt digital technology, to shift the mindset from just focusing about profits to focusing to customers. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. There are plenty of questions actually, Pak Michel, about mindsets and culture. But there is one question I think I'd like to address first before we go on about cultures. It is from Mas Fadil Ibrahim. Again, talking about regulations that banking industry are regulated by OJK or by Bank Indonesia, and sometimes the digital transformation timeline still stuck on permission from the regulator. That happens. So based on your experience, how could you handle that situation?
Well, we need to stay close to the regulators. We need to stay open and we need to continuously have a good relationship with the regulators. But nowadays, even today, right, in this pandemic era, the regulator has changed their mindset. Things that we need to have everything in a wet signature now can be accepted with the digital signatures. Things that everything needs to be face-to-face discussion nowadays, it actually already accepted through a video conference or video discussion. So we don't need to continuously have the mindset, again, this is the mindset changes, that the regulator is not transforming. Regulator is transforming. They are looking for a way. They have been mandated also from the government. They need to be the catalyst of digital transformation, acceleration. They are working on it. I'm pretty much sure if you guys already have a lot of discussion with OJK, OJK has been working and be able to provide a lot of relaxation, I would say relaxation, and providing a lot of ways so that we can actually serve our customers. Again, the basis when we discuss with OJK is always we want to be able to serve our customer better. We want to make sure that the economy is continuing to work, economy is continuing to move, and these are the ways we can actually support not only the customers, also the people and also the government. And with this mindset, with this a lot of collaborations, I do believe regulators is not going to be the issue. we will need to work closely together within the regulator, customers, and our internal. And if we actually do well manage everything, we can actually deploy a lot of good things, a lot of new things to help the customers and also help the nations. That's how I see it.
Perfect. We can start with questions with cultures. I hope the regulation part has been well answered. Now we're talking more about something which is less obvious, which is the cultures, the mindset. This is a question by Sylvia Putri, and the question is, Indonesia is a big country, and we have a lot of cultures, different cultures in Indonesia. The question is how you combine or leverage that differences in cultures in order to produce innovations in terms of the digital innovation.
Right. So the variation and a lot of cultures is actually opportunity for us, right? We can actually learn from various of things how we can actually create a new offering. We are probably operating nationwide across multiple cities, across provinces. We understand that one solution, it won't fit to everything, right? So that's why we always keep saying that we need to create a solution that is fit for purpose. We need to create a solution that is actually hyper personalizations to the way the extent of each of individual probably we give a different solutions. And we talk about different culture, and that is why we are trying to understand from this culture, from this behavior, from these cities, what are the differences? And we need to see that differences as an opportunity for us to create a personalization solution. We need to see that as an opportunity for us to provide something that probably other companies giving a general solutions. And we need to see that as an input for us to be able to embrace a lot of dynamic needs, a lot of different behaviors, and how we can actually address it by having a different solutions for each of the cities, for each of the behavior, for each of the customers, even for each of the employees. Again, we will be having this kind of problems in anything that we do. We will not gonna have only one single bulletproof solution. We need to have multiple solutions that is actually fit for purpose, fit for certain segments, and fit for a certain behavior, and fit for certain cultures. So that's how we see it.
Great. So being aware of differences in cultures, but at the same time, ability to leverage those differences to offer better values for the customers.
Yeah.
Excellent. Here's a question from Hendra. The question is how to select experiments between different options. I mean, you have alternatives to make experiments, right? So how do you select which experiments you should be doing, and how to ensure the budget is adequate for the experiments? Because sometimes we don't know how big the cost of that experiments would be.
Okay. Well, first you need to create a framework. In the framework, you'll be able to probably create a matrix to see what is the effort to do that idea, right? We need to see the feasibility studies, whether the idea is something that we can do quickly, whether we have all the key ingredients. It's just a matter of combining them together to become a new solutions, or is something that you need to build from scratch. And based on the effort that you need to do, you need to actually see whether that's going to be moving the needle or not, whether that is actually something that the customer is actually looking for or not. And how we can make the decision is based on data and insight. We're leveraging the data, understand the behaviors, test the hypothesis. We don't need to actually experimental can be very cheap. That's the reason why the technology today, there's a lot of solutions in the market where you can actually just test it with the cloud solution, right? Test it with a simple subscription mode. The cost will not cost you that much. You test it, you have it, and experimental with that. So I'm not a believer where experiment will always have a high cost. If you have a high cost in an experimental, it means that you're already in a scale out mode. Experimental, you need to really cap it. What is worth it to do experimental? And experiment means that someone else haven't done it before. If someone else have done it before, you don't need to go to the stage of experimenting. All you need to do is just scale it out. It depends on your business strategy, whether you want to be the pioneer or you want to be a followers, but you do better. So it depends how you see it.
So still about the cost. See, the cost of experimentation is not just the financial cost, right? But also, you have to you have to take your employees away from their work, and then there are times there, and there are opportunities lost. So there are still costs, and some experiments, maybe in the beginning it's still cheap. You must not put in too much money into an early stage experiments. But once the project grows, it becomes more and more expensive, right? And yet, at that time, we still haven't been able to be sure that that experiment will work in the end. So the cost will rise. So when you decide to kill that idea because one or two reasons, how do you justify those costs to management? And that's a very solid question. That question is actually from Elvis F. Aniza.
All right, thank you, Paindra. That is a very, very good question. And I guess this is an art. I mean, there's no right and wrong in anything that you do. It depends on the risk appetite of the organization as well, right? How big of the risk appetite of your organization. Of course, you need to accommodate a different risk appetite. If the company is actually a risk adverse, meaning that they are not willing to take a risk higher than the revenue that is going to be generated, you need to change the way you are doing experimentation. But if the company is a more risk takers, meaning that they are willing to do more experimental because they know it's like you're digging and looking for oil, right? You keep on digging. It takes a lot of cost, but once you get the oil, you will really realize the revenues. And that's how experimental ideas is working, right? And if we talk about when is the right time to kill the ideas, well, I guess we need to agree first on the key measurement. That is what I said at the beginning, right? When we actually formulating an idea, we need to set the goals and we need to understand and agree on the key measurements. When we say the key measurements, even in each of the stages, in the experimental or POC mode, what are the key measurements that we want to set? On the pilot stage, what are the key measurements that we want to set? And in the scale out stage, what are the key that we need to measurement that we need to measure? And based on that, we need to agree what we agreed at the beginning. If we said that if it doesn't meet this certain threshold, we need to kill the idea. But if it's meet in a borderline, meeting the threshold, we probably can still fine tune the idea. So that's where we need to actually have the key measurements set at the beginning and agreed that is the right key measurement. Otherwise, you'll be continuously have a subjectivity whether you need to kill the idea or you need to continue to scale. So agree first with the key measurements and agree with the threshold and making sure everyone committed to the threshold and the numbers.
That leads to the question by Sono Kunchoro. So what are the key measurements that you normally use to justify whether to kill an idea or to go with an idea?
Well, number one, obviously, is the customer take-up. If you don't have the customer take-up, it means that you're not solving the customer problems. Again, it has to serve customer problems. When there's no take-ups, we are not measuring the lagging indicator yet at the point of the pilot or experimental, such as what are the revenues, what are the costs, and so on and so forth. What we need to see whether our products, our solution is actually accepted well in the segment that we are saying that they need these solutions. So we need to define first the segments, the customer's behavior or the target, and the product. If there is not meeting a certain threshold, it means there is no take-up into that product. Or we can also, in the pilot or in the experimental environment, we actually always need to get the customer feedback, right? It's a continuous loop. It's a continuous feedback. We need to get the customer feedback. What are something that is not working, and what are the things that we need to change it again. So what is important to measure is the customer take up, is the conversion rate. After that, the others is actually the lagging indicators needs to follow.
Yes, wonderful. That's very precise. So next questions. It's from Indra Cipta. As we knew, world banking industries are shifting into the digital banking. So in your opinion, will banking would have conflict with P2P or fintech industries? And are the people ready for that?
Okay, it's a very good point and a very valid opinion. But at this point in time, we need to see this fintech startup or anything as a complement, because banking, we cannot onboard everyone at any given time. We need to do a full KYC, know your customers. We need to be really understand who are they. There's a certain requirements being set up by local regulators, by the regional regulators, even the world regulators, right? Because the financial system is very complex. The financial system is very prone to cybercrime or even money laundering, terrorism, and so on and so forth. There are certain segments that we cannot serve at this point in time, given that requirements of the KYC. And that's where the fintech can actually help us to serve the segment that we cannot serve. Because there's this unbankable segments, there's unbanked segments. There's two different things. The unbankable, they will never meet the requirement of a KYC that we already put in place. They are the one that actually can be served by this peer-to-peer, fintech, or any startup. And by having those interaction happen, we can help them to build the data, the information enough to understand their behavior. Because in anything that we do, we need to be able to understand who are they, who are our customers before we onboard them. And there are segments at this point in time that we cannot serve because they are unbankable segments. And that's where the fintech can actually complement us. I'm seeing it between us. It's a collaborative effort. As long as we stay true to our objective and target is to serve customer problems, I'm not seeing that as a competitions. I'm seeing that as a collaborations. This is the mindset that also needs to change. In the past, we always think about competitions and we need to do better from our competitors. But in the future, it's about building ecosystem. It's about building partnership. It's about creating an environment where we can actually collaborate and create a new business models.
Great. There's a questions related to that by Bun Sucento. In your opinion, what would be the digital transformations in banking in Indonesia look like today? Especially in terms of serving and connecting with customers post COVID-19. Will there be changes in business model, such as like sharing resources in one big ecosystem, like ATM machine network or other technology innovation? So what's your perspective on that?
Well, it really gonna change because branches will continue to exist, but branches will no longer the main channel to serve our customers. In the next few years, or even today, digital has become the main channel for customers to interact with us, while branches is a complement, is a supplement channel. And because of that, we need to continuously improve the way we serve our customers and improve the way we manage our costs. As if there's an example of whether ATM is going to be shut, why not? As long as we serve the customer's problem, right? As long as we are able to reduce our cost footprint, because in financial services, there's a lot of also pressures from the government or regulations to keep on reducing the margin, right? We need to have a very thin margin for us in order to support more people to embrace banking or to create this unbankable or unbanked segments to be able to adopt to our solutions. So when we actually being pressure with a very thin margin, we need to make sure that we can manage our cost properly. And the cost of digital is way cheaper than the cost we serving our customers in the traditional way. So that's how we can actually change the way we are serving customers better and cheaper actually at the same time.
Talking about customers, here's a question by Josie Suryadinata. Being an excellent customer-centric means solving customer problem that was implied from your presentations earlier. The question is, how do you create wow customer experience consistently, both internal customers or external customers, or internal stakeholders or external stakeholders?
Oh, I guess that's a very difficult question. Consistently is the key, right?
Yeah.
It takes time. It takes time to sustain a better customer experience, solving problems, because sometimes there's this what we call it one hit wonder, right? We only get customer tractions at the beginning and then suddenly you lose your focus. The key important that we need to continue ensure it's within the DNA of the organization is the focus of customer mindset, the customer of solving the customer problems. And if we stay true to that, there is no such thing as a solution, a product that continuously relevant to the customers. Product solutions we will need to continue to change and adapt. If we don't have the mindset of continuous improvement, we're no longer going to be relevant to the customers. We're no longer going to be able to serve the customer's needs. And what is the customer wants? We talk about customer 4.0, right? Faster, better, responsive, and cheaper, right? And as long as we continue year by year, day by day, we continue creating a solution that is faster, that is easier, that is convenient, that is cheaper, that is aligned to what they need, you'll get the customer's loyalty. But there's no such thing as a loyalty to the brand nowadays. There's no such thing as loyalty to the brand. They're going to be loyal to those that actually understand their needs and whoever they are. No matter whether you're a startup, a fintech, or big names, they will only loyal to those that understand the customer needs, to those that is actually continuously do innovation, to those that actually continue to change the way they help the customers.
Never stops because
never stop.
Customers changes, markets changes, competition changes. You have to keep rolling the cycle. Wow. Okay, we have only one question to answer because since we're almost at 12 o'clock now in Jakarta, actually will be coming from me. In the beginning of the session, I mentioned that you have a lot of responsibility. I mean, you are the chief strategy officer. There are 3 big responsibility. So, I was wondering about Michel, what are the biggest challenges for you personally in taking up all those responsibilities, and how do you tackle them?
Well, I guess from my few years experience, the biggest challenge is always trying to meet up the expectation from the top with the execution levels at the working level. That is always the biggest challenge. That what is the top have envisioned on the strategy is not being executed well. The problem is not all about creating ideas. We'll never stop creating new ideas. The problem is execution. We're always lagging on the execution. We always continue back to doing BAU, business as usual, instead of doing innovations. And that's because that's probably the bread and butter that we are used to do it. But we are, as you said, the human nature is not easy to accept changes. And that's where I got this strategy, because I'm working to formulate new ideas with the management. And I need to ensure that strategy is being executed, is being implemented. That is the transformation part. And I need to ensure digital is being the enablers to any transformation that we do. So that's the reason why I got this responsibilities. Formulating the strategy, ensuring the transformation execution, and ensuring the solution digital will be the key solution in anything that we do.
Any personal advice on? I suppose there are also people out there who has a lot of responsibility as you do. So, what is your personal advice to those corporate innovators who have to do a lot of things and then pressured with a very high demand of results? So, what's your advice?
Well, my first advice is take a lot of vitamins. So,
okay.
but because it's draining, it's exhausted, it's a lot of things that you need to think about. You cannot say take it for granted that people will continue to do and execute the strategy, and we also cannot take it for granted that the strategy is correct. So that's the thing we need to embrace. Changes will continue to happen. We need to change in every second that we do, and it's exhausted. But you'll enjoy the outcome. You will see the results. It's like you're hiking a mountain, right? The journey is very tiring, is very frustrating, but when you reach the top, you're gonna embrace and see the results. And that's where you need to see it, right? When we do this, when anyone that is actually doing the same role as I am, you need to have a mindset that you changing an organization, you change the business, you put a good legacy behind, and that is what we are aiming to go. That is what we are trying to do, and that's how you can actually continue to have your, state of mind, peace of mind,
and energy to keep moving forward no matter what.
Exactly.
Satisfactions of reaching something valuable for other people's. Excellent. Please round of applause for Pak Michel Hamilton.
Thank you.
We have a lot of great questions today, and
I'm so grateful with a lot of questions.
Yes,
very exciting
and they are
to hear
all
a lot of
questions, important questions, and you have answered them super well. So I learned a lot from your session. Pak Michel, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu semuanya, sahabat-sahabat corporate innovators, wherever you are across Asia, I think it's time for us to have lunch to get the vitamins that Pak Michel has talked about, so that we can continue on our journey of innovations. So thank you again, Pak Michel. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a lunch break for 1 hour. And during the break, you can click the networking button so you can meet with new friends all over Asia and then exchange cards and have some networking. So thank you again, Pak Michel. Thank you again, everyone who's joining the sessions. And I'll see you in 1 hour after having lunch. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.